Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out tonight to join us for this special question and answer session for our Retail LEDA program. I'd like to give a special thank you to our council members that have joined us for tonight. So this presentation will take about 20 minutes. I'm going to go over the details for the new Retail LEDA program, and then at the end of the program, we're going to open it up for question and answer sessions. We have remote microphones so that everyone can hear us online. If you do have a question or comment, please wait until Eli comes to you with a microphone, so that way we make sure we capture all the questions and comments so everybody can hear, especially the people that are joining us online. Okay, next slide. So several years ago, the state of Colorado enacted a program called LEDA. This program, our Local Economic Development Act, allowed local governments to provide a program to help businesses expand the economic community. And we currently have a large economic development LEDA program. That program is not going away. We're keeping that program. This is a second retail LEDA program that we're introducing tonight. And on this slide, you'll see all of the legislation behind the LEDA ordinance, so that if you want to go and review that legislation, review some of the language and terms, you'll have access to that. I do want to mention that in 2009, the county adopted Ordinance 543, and that was the local economic development plan. And then there was an additional amendment that was adopted, that was 02315 amendment, that allowed a local government entity to enact a retail LEDA program. So that is where you'll find all the ordinances and legislation around these programs that we're talking about tonight. Next slide. So why invest? Why do we need investment in Los Alamos County? We need opportunities for growth. We need to revitalize our commercial areas and boost local visitor and local spending. We need to enhance our quality of life, diversify our local economy, and support tourism and complementary activities. So these programs provide us a means of economic gardening in our community that helps support our small businesses and helps them get ahead. Next slide. So LEDA has many opportunities and incentives. And I'm just going to go over some of the strategic opportunities that we have with our LEDA programs. So the LEDA programs are helping us to fill critical retail gaps in the economy, such as food service, apparel, health, and personal care, enhance tourism infrastructure and the visitor experience, revitalize key commercial corridors and underutilized properties, increase local spending, capture and reduce retail leakage. We all know that everybody's driving down the hill to Costco and Sam's and spending a lot of money off the hill. And this program is going to help us start to recapture some of that leakage into Los Alamos County. And it's going to support community identified needs based on market data and survey feedback, such as our market gap analysis and things that we all know we need in our community that we currently don't have. So LEDA incentives provide a public investment in capital infrastructure or building improvements. They assist with storefront, accessibility, and code compliance upgrades. Structured as a performance-based agreement, this funding is tied to job creation, capital investment, and other deliverables. Next slide. So the retail LEDA program is a little bit different than our big LEDA program. So I'm going to kind of explain this program and how it's different. So Los Alamos County's LEDA retail program focuses on strategic investment on businesses that align with our community goals, including diversifying our local economy, revitalizing commercial areas, expanding essential goods and services, and enhancing tourism-related infrastructure. So $400,000 was allocated by the council in fiscal year 26 for this program, starting July 1st of 25. And these awards are going to be in $20,000 increments. So it could be a very small award of 20,000 and it could go up to 100,000. Now that's the current funding that we have for this program right now, but that could change and you could ask for more and that could still be considered by the review committee and the council for funding. But this is what we're targeting. So we're targeting those areas of the economy that we really need. And these are going to be small LEDA grants to help our small businesses. So key target market gaps that we're seeing. So we all know we need extra restaurants, cafes, specialty grocers. We'd love to have clothing and apparel retail. We would love to have more health and personal care stores. And we'd like to see expansion in our cultural, tourism, and retail experience-based retail. So these are the key markets that we're going to be looking at to provide this funding for. So you need to focus on that when you consider putting in an application because these are going to be our priority areas for our community that we're going to try and meet. So this will help us to catalyze business and community benefits by improving infrastructure, the frontage of buildings, accessibility, ADA compliancy of buildings, support local business expansion, create and retain quality jobs. Next slide. So now I'm going to start going through the details of this program and how this program is going to be set up. The first thing we're going to consider is the eligibility of this program. So to qualify, an applicant must document that they meet one of these retail market needs. And this has to be supported by data, informed assessments, or community feedback. You have to demonstrate capital investment and a long-term commitment to the proposed location or project. You have to be in compliance with all applicable building, planning, and zoning regulations. So you got to make sure you're done with all that, you're up to code on all of that. Be sure that you're current on all your tax obligations. Meet all applicable environmental regulations. You need to be in environmental compliance. And you need to provide financial documentation. So for existing businesses, you're going to need to provide 3 years of financial statements. If you're a new business, you can provide a business plan with a pro forma financials. And you have to be the business or property owner directly engaged in the retail operations. Next slide. So one of the things that we've realized in the past is that our LEDA application process has been cumbersome for applicants. So in an attempt to make it easier for small businesses to apply for this retail LEDA program, we made it a little bit different. And so here's how it's going to work. Part 1 is there's going to be an eligibility screening. And this eligibility screening, as you can see in the slide, is going to ask you these 5 questions. And you're going to want to answer yes to all 5 of those questions before you move ahead. And so this will help us make sure that nobody just goes in and fills out an application and they're not really qualified for the program. So We're hopeful that this will help us to create quality applications, to cut down on the red tape, and to make it a less cumbersome process for the applicants. So after completing part one, there will be a part two. So on part two, next slide. Yeah. Okay. Let's go through these questions. So the proposal for the screening, number one, does the project address the retail market needs based on the information assessment and community feedback for Los Alamos County? Food service, clothing, apparel, personal health, cultural, and recreational tourism. Number two, is the proposed use allowable at the intended location? Staff can assist with verifying the location, zoning, and designation and allowable uses. Number three, do you acknowledge the requirement for security? Acceptable security is cash, a letter of credit, equal assets of value, or give evidence of an acceptable financing commitment. Number four, are you current with your tax obligations for federal, state, and local taxes? Number five, do you understand that any proposed retail project must follow all applicable environmental laws at the federal, state, and local levels? And compliance is required throughout construction and in ongoing operations. This includes any possible rules related to ADA accessibility, air and water quality, waste management, and hazardous materials. Next slide. Okay, so once you've made it through that and you have all your yeses, we're going to move into part two of the application process. So this is when the applicant fills out and submits a formal application. So the Economic Development Division will have a designated agent that will review the application for completeness. So we'll make sure you didn't leave anything out. We'll go over it. So that way we make sure we have a quality application in process. So after we receive that, there will be a review committee that will assess the feasibility of the project. As part of the review process, a security agreement will be carried out. All projects that are recommended by the review committee will be forwarded to the county council for consideration. If approved by the county council during a public hearing, a project participation agreement will be carried out. Once the compliance period concludes and all requirements have been met, the project will be formally closed out and the security is released. If non-compliance is identified, remedies may include an extended compliance period or clawback provisions requiring the return of awarded funds. And this is a state law. So the clawback is a state law, and you can see the legislation is referred to here in Section 8, LEDA Organization 543, and that's a state law if you need to look that up for further review. Okay, so this is a map of the process that I just went over, and I'm going to go over it one more time so it's really clear as to the process for the applications. So part one is going to be the screening. That's where you answer the questions and you have all yes answers. Then if you have all yes answers, you're going to move to the pre-application meeting. You're going to engage with the county staff from the Economic Development Department, and we're going to make sure that you have a complete application. You're not missing anything. You've got a good quality application into play. So we submit the application, and then it is reviewed by the committee. Now, the committee is going to be staff from CDD, ED, Economic Development, the county manager's office, the the attorney's office, and the finance department. So we will have a review committee that will review the application. So if it passes the review by the committee, we will introduce an ordinance. There will be a public hearing of the ordinance that will be awarded, and there will be compliance under the terms of the project participation agreement, and then the project will have a closeout period. So that's a nice window picture of the process in general so that you can take a look at it. Next slide. So before we get to questions, I just want to show you this. We're going to be taking, if you do have additional questions or comments regarding the Retail LEDA program, you feel free to email us here, and we're going to capture all the questions and comments from tonight, and then we will be presenting this formally on August 5th at the council. But we're going to open the floor out now to anybody that has questions. And as a reminder, please wait until Eli brings you the microphone.
If you could please state your name.
Yes, Prisca Tiesi. Just a clarification. So people can apply for LEDA if, let's say, a business wants to be ADA compliant. Is that okay? But then in the eligibility, it talks about, maybe I got that wrong, but in the compliance, you need to be, is building code, is being ADA compliant part of a building code? Okay, so how do you reconcile that?
Well, we're gonna take all applications into consideration. So if you're a business that needs to upgrade their ADA compliance, so we encourage you to apply. Because we know there's a lot of old businesses and structures in town that want to upgrade their ADA compliance.
So that means that you would still, even if you're not eligible in terms of billing code, okay.
Yeah, this program is to help us better our community. So we understand that there's a lot of businesses in that particular situation that we're sensitive to.
So is this open to potential landlords? So I have a building I'm working on and I've got some ADA issues with handicap parking. I've got some energy efficiency issues. Is that something that would be allowable under this, even though I'm not running the retail portions of I'm essentially being a landlord?
Could you say your name for the record? Do you mind?
Chris Puccini.
Thank you. I will take that. The answer is potentially. LEDA, I would say yes, as a property owner, you are eligible to apply for LEDA. LEDA is very specific, though, to economic development. So there would still have to be some sort of tie to economic development for a LEDA to be LEDA eligible. So it could be an expansion of the property. It could be creating some additional opportunities that maybe isn't there without the upgrades. That would be a tie to economic development.
I've got two questions. One, is retail limited to people who are selling items, physical items, or is it also experiential? I'll let you answer that and then I'll ask my next one. Sorry, Elizabeth Leeminghainer.
Could you clarify what you mean by experiential?
So I specifically provide drop-in services for kids to come play at STEAM Lab and do after-school programming, as well as I can see a tourism tie-in there, or a tie-in to our middle and high schoolers needing more places to go in the evenings and things like that. So it's not selling an item, but it is selling access to a place.
If it's services, it very likely could be eligible. Again, I would still tie it to the tourism, and I would tie it to jobs or your ability to take in more. I'm assuming you charge for the services and things like that.
Correct,
So
yes.
I would think likely yes.
Okay. I had a second question, but then I asked that one. So I'll let someone else have it and we'll come back to me.
Thank you. And I would also like to add that the LEDA for Retail program that we are introducing this evening is not meant to replace our existing LEDA program. So proposals that may not fit into the categories Shanna described earlier, we still have our general LEDA program as well. And so there's still opportunity there for a lot of our local business owners.
If it's okay, I'd like to go online. There's a few hands up for a couple questions, and then we'll give it to you, Alan. Sorry, I didn't mean. Cindy, if you can unmute.
Thanks for having the session and for taking questions. So just from the flow chart of how this process works, it looks like the review is all internal staff before it would pass through the rest of the process to public hearing. There's no third-party review.
Yes, that's correct. If you read the county's ordinance, ultimately the county manager is charged with determining eligibility before it comes to council. So we are following our ordinance. For the purposes of this, I certainly want to work as a team with other members like our finance and our attorney's office, but that is what the ordinance says.
Okay. And then my other question is, looking at that chart, how long do you, I mean, I know this is a hard question to answer, but how long do you think it actually would take to go from the start of that process to the finish?
You are correct. That is a hard question because there's some variables that depend on turnaround time to get the information we need. But I will say that 2 things that we are going to publish on our website when we roll this out is a sample participation agreement and a sample security agreement to try to make that a simpler process. What I would say has been the long period in past LEDA agreements is negotiating and getting the participation agreement all put together for that particular project. So given that there is some consistency in this program, we're hoping that the templates will reduce on some of that time of putting that together.
Okay, thank you.
Sandy, do you want to go next?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation, Dr. Shanna. Also, thank you for doing a Zoom. That is super helpful. I wanted to ask, will there be county staff to assist people in the early stages to figure out how to make their project pass the screening? Thank you.
Yes, Sandy, thank you for that. Yeah, and that's why we set it up as a 2-stage process. In that second stage, they will meet with the county staff and we will help them with the applications so we can make sure they have a quality application, hold their hand, help them through the process so they know what to expect and there's clear pathways of what's going to happen.
If I could add to Shanna's response, early on, the online screening questionnaire is intended to be questions that we hope most small business owners can answer on their own. However, if there are any questions, we have staff in our EDD division that'd be happy to help walk you through some of those and answer any questions you may have.
Okay, Lauren, you're up.
Hi, thank you. Laura McDaniel, Director of Los Alamos Commerce and Development Corporation. I echo Sandy too. Thank you for making this available via Zoom. Sorry I can't be there in person tonight. But my question is kind of two-part, and it builds off of what Cindy's comment was, around the flow chart. I think that's extremely helpful to see. I was wondering if it's possible to put specific timeframes associated with each of the milestones, just to give some additional context to the businesses who are perhaps applying to this process, to understand how long each stage will take. And that would be in an ideal situation where they have submitted all of the pertinent and relevant and required information as part of the application.
Thank you, Lauren. I think we can commit to when things are submitted, we can add that. So I appreciate the feedback.
Okay, great, thank you. And then my second question was, is Anita Barella in her role the appropriate point person to help businesses along this process specifically? If there are questions or additional information that's going to be required?
Yes.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Alan?
So I think my question is, what is this different than what we have right now? I don't see any difference more than limiting the amount of dollars that could be assigned, but I don't see anything well, I don't know if this is even a proposal or detail, but I don't see what is the difference from what we have right now and existing, that this is something that will help, but I don't see what is it. And I have more questions and comments.
I guess I'll answer it this way, is that you're correct. The LEDA law is the LEDA law. And so by the statute, by ordinance, every application has to ask for similar situation. Every participation has to have certain contents in it. However, I would look at this as a strategic targeting and marketing effort to issue smaller amounts for the purpose of LEDA, and to simplify with our templates how you engage with it, and to reach out to all the small businesses, make sure they know it's there, have them think about what, if they're eligible, what they might be interested in, and also understand a little bit more about thinking about where we know there's some leakage in spending, that all of us would benefit from that spending happening here rather than off the hill.
So again, I don't see what is the difference from what is being presented to what is existing, because I don't think there is any language in the ordinance that says the amounts. So now you are assigning specific amounts that will be given. So that is the only difference that I can see right now. But so, and again, something that, I'm having the ordinance here right now, and I see a lot of the still same misinformation that is being presented to what the language of the ordinance says. So I think that is still part of a problem of having a process that it is not what it was intended for. So just I don't know, just a comment.
Any other questions? Jill, if you could state your name for the record.
Jill Lang. I own Samizdat Bookstore and Tea House. I have a question as to whether this grant can be used for new payroll. So I understand that you're looking to create and retain jobs. Let's say I was looking to add evening hours, and my biggest cost in that is going to be new payroll. Is this an allowable use for this grant? Thank you.
Yes, unfortunately, it would not. It is really for bricks and mortar improvements. However, the additional jobs and the additional hours would be a result that would help justify having some sort of expansion or additional hours or improvements that would qualify under LEDA. But it really is about a project or equipment or something that has a time frame, because if it were payroll, we couldn't sustain it long term. So it's not an operational subsidy.
What would trigger, this is Elizabeth Lanning-Hainer again, what would trigger a clawback and an expectation to pay LEDA funds back? Is that the project not being completed, or is that all of the goals and benchmarks not being met? So I'm kind of curious about, we can hope, but we can't guarantee.
I will take a stab at that.
Thank you.
So some of the things that could happen is a business closes before the participation agreement. So if your participation is for 3, 4, 5 years and the business closes, that would trigger a clawback. Sometimes we've had businesses sell and sell out their business to a different owner, and so that triggers. A lot of times we just get paid back. It's not really, we don't necessarily have to enact a clawback, but usually we get paid back in that circumstance when that happens. It could be that as part of the participation, you said you were going to be open Saturday evenings, and for whatever reason, you're not open Saturday evenings. But again, I think, with any agreement the county does, we want success, we want compliance. So it would be a notification process. It would be an ability to maybe extend the period if you're having maybe some staffing shortfalls and you need a little more time to replace the staffing before you can do those extra hours. We would work with the business on just extending it, or and then the clawback is there in case really the promises made were not being able to be fulfilled.
This is also going to be a hard question, but I knew at least one person in this room is frustrated by the previous LEDA process. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this appears to be an attempt to do a fast track, simplified LEDA process than the previous one with smaller dollar amounts. What would your guess be as the number of hours that are going to be put in on the part of the person getting the grant? Because if I'm getting a $20,000 grant, I'm not putting 100 hours into this. If I do, it's absolutely not worth it. I'll probably go through the process, at least talk to you guys. I mean, I've got about $60,000 worth of improvements I'd love to see at my property that would enable retail food and clothing, and very specifically a tourist shop, which is what I really want to get in there. But if I have to spend multiple hundred of hours to do this, it's not worth it. So any comment on that?
I really appreciate that comment. I think it's real, and I think it should be considered for sure. I will tell you that it depends. And I will tell you what I can see, what we've experienced, the biggest challenges for the applicant on LEDA have been. One is the security. It is very difficult sometimes for a small business to get security. And that's why we want to focus on that, and we don't want to waste anyone's time if we don't have that in place. And so we're trying to address some of the major deal breakers up front and try to figure out how to get someone there before they spend a lot of time giving us financial information, pulling documents, making justifications, writing narratives. So we're trying to address the kind of issues up front. The second and third thing or a couple of things that I will say will be a barrier will be needing cost estimates. I don't even know how much it's going to cost, or I don't even know, I don't have a contractor estimate. I don't have an architect. I don't know. I can't show you exactly what it is yet, but I have this notion of what I want to do. And those, when you're in a commercial property and you have to have an architect or get designs so you can actually show those to a contractor to get estimates to know what you're even asking for, costs some upfront money, and they're not necessarily easy to find sometimes. So I would say those are the biggest barriers. Someone who comes in with architectural drawings, with estimates, who has a plan, who's already made that investment, I would consider that someone really ready to apply. If you really just have a notion and no idea what it's going to cost or what it will take, or that's going to be where it is really hard to sort of undertake capital investments on infrastructure. If that's something you haven't done before and you don't have that support of the design professionals.
And this is Eli Isaacson, Community Development Director for the county. Haven't had a chance to introduce myself, but I think, Anne, your response ties back to Lauren's earlier question about timelines and things like that. It really, I think, will be influenced heavily by the preparedness of the applicant. How ready is the applicant to move through this process? And depending on where the applicant is at, could impact the time it takes not only to get to an application, but then also working through the application review on the county side.
Yeah, and I'm going to go back to questions online in a minute, but I just thought of, I think examples are helpful. And here's an example I can think of. I'm a restaurant owner. I have an idea that I want to move into a new space. I have the new space identified. It needs all new kitchen equipment and maybe expanding of the kitchen. So I know that I can go out and get quotes on commercial kitchen equipment, and I can tell you that it's going to be $50,000 worth of kitchen equipment. Okay. But maybe what I don't know is if the electrical power, the panel our service needs to be upgraded to provide the adequate electric. I may not know how much it's going to cost to put in the commercial hood vent that has to go over the new stove. And so that's where you may not also have a total picture of what some of the costs are. And so that's an example I can think of where it does take some effort upfront in project planning to know even how much money you're wanting to ask for. So does that help a little?
Councilor Rieger.
Thank you. So if you have a property that is deficient, is not up to code, who is doing the application? Is it the landlord or the retailer? And if it's the retailer, then where's the part in there where you need the permission of the landlord to actually modify the building? And then in the end, who owns the improvement? I think you're implying the landlord, but doesn't really say it. So isn't the landlord the natural applicant?
Councilor Rieger, good question. The answer can vary depending on the circumstance. What we presented was that either the applicant can be the tenant or the property owner. Like any building permit or anything else we do, there would be an affidavit by the property owner authorizing the work be done on the property. Who owns the improvement depends on whether it's something that can be removed and taken with, or whether it's actually fixed to the asset. So that can vary. So there are some pieces, I'll use my kitchen equipment example, or if you're doing outdoor dining and you want to purchase all new outdoor dining chairs and tables and awnings, maybe that could go with the tenant to a different location if they're the ones that did all the effort and they put up all the effort when they move or whatever. But the property owner would have to only approve necessarily modifications to their asset, which is the bricks and mortar and what's attached to it. So it can vary depending on what someone's asking for and doing. I'm going to go online. Janice?
Yes, hi. I just want to comment that I'm really appreciative of moving the retail LEDA process along. So I'm really happy to hear about this meeting and the discussion and the feedback. So a couple things. I was wondering, well, I fully agree with Lauren. I was hoping to hear more about a timeline of how long it would take an applicant to get through the process, because that was a big concern with a prior LEDA applicant, that there was no timeline. And it's completely understandable. It depends on the project and the application being complete. However, assuming the application is complete, what is then the timeline, the outline that an applicant can expect that the application is moving through the review process, and when will there be a final answer? So that's one thing. Secondly, I was wondering if you could please describe in more detail what the review process will be like, the internal review process, because just really wanting to know how an application will be fairly evaluated compared to other applications. There was a point system discussed. How internally, if you can walk us through more details of how that review process, what that looks like.
As Ms. Laurent mentioned earlier and Shanna mentioned in her presentation, we are bringing this forward to council on August 5th, so that's in 2 weeks' time. Some of these questions about timelines, the evaluation criteria by which the applications will be reviewed, the members of the committee that will be reviewing it. We hope to provide more detailed information in those areas at that council meeting. But we are working through an application that will be available on our website here shortly for the second part of the process, which will outline some of those criteria.
Thank you. And I would just add that I think we are going to attempt to put timelines on when we receive something, we can put a timeline on when you will hear back from us. So we understand when you submit something, you don't want it to go in a black hole. You want to know it's moving forward. You want to know someone's looking at it. So I think that's kind of something we can easily address in the process. I can also say that, you know, we're not really looking to rank projects against each other. We're looking to make awards for the purposes of economic development to support retail and small business in the community. So it's really not like we're saying, oh, you get 90, you get 70, so sorry, we're gonna not fund you. We really, if we can get a handful of these through and awarded, we'll be thrilled. So we're not really trying to pick and choose. What we're trying to do is I think there's copies in the back of the room, it's on our website. If you look at our LEDA ordinance, it very clearly states what needs to be in the participation agreement. So it's going to depend on our ability for the review committee to adequately answer and fill in the participation agreement that meets the LEDA ordinance on those criteria that need to be answered per our ordinance. So I highly recommend. I know it's not like fun to read law, but I do want to make sure everybody knows that's what we're operating under. This is not just staff wants to make it this way. This is the framework under which we're trying to create and promote and award more LEDA programs in the community, more LEDA awards, grant awards, or loan. We can also do loans. We're assuming most of these will be grants, but I should mention that we also can do low and 0% interest loans as well as part of the program. That if anyone's interested in that.
Okay, thank you. I just have one more quick question. How are the amounts determined of what the LEDA amounts will be? 20,000 to what? 200,000?
So as part of our budget hearings that we had back in April, we added $400,000 into our economic development fund for the purpose of promoting retail for LEDA. And so the idea of doing $20,000 increments up to $100,000 per award is just our way of kind of indicating we want to do smaller, quicker awards that are not as burdensome. But it does not at all prohibit someone from doing a larger LEDA application and have an idea. So we will just process that a little differently. It's just really, we're trying to get some incentives around small business and around retail in these categories specifically. It does not limit us from doing something different. If somebody really wants to do something different, come talk to us and we'll talk to you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's go back to Lauren.
Hi, thank you. My other question is about the application cycle. I don't think I saw this in the slides from Dr. Sasser, but is this going to be a call for applications, or are applications going to be accepted on a rolling basis? And I ask that because I don't want to penalize smaller owners who are busy with their day-to-day operations and may not have the ability to jump on this right away. So have you considered maybe putting a date out annually where you're accepting applications?
Lauren, we're going to accept these on a rolling basis. So if somebody wants to fill out the paperwork and submit it, they can do it at any time.
Okay, so it's first come, first serve, essentially.
Yes.
Okay, is there a possibility of if you have a lot of applications coming in and you hit that $400,000 threshold, that you could possibly tap into general funds, or is it just the 400,000 for fiscal year 26?
If we get more applicants than we can afford in our economic development fund, we will be talking to council about that good problem.
Okay, thank you.
Sandy?
Thank you. My name is Sandy Jones. My question has to do with for staff. I'm just hoping that it will be possible to set expectations as to what businesses can expect when they go into if everything goes well, they fill out their application, and as Lauren stated previously, they've given all the information they need. There's no need for any back and forth. Would they be looking at potentially a 2-week time frame where the review committee looks at it? Would it be a month, 2 months? What kind of expectation do you all want to set for the process? Thank you.
So Sandy, I think there's moments in the process we can set some expectation. One would be when we get an initial screening, we can set a quick turnaround time for that. I think we can set at when you initially submit your phase 2 application, we can submit a time frame when when you'll hear back from us initially on if anything's missing or if it's deemed complete. And then once it's complete, it's a matter of getting the participation agreement drafted. So any of these any of these projects that get to the point where there's a participation agreement drafted and it's ready for county council by ordinance has to be an introduction and then a public hearing. And so those have to be at least a certain amount of time apart. And then the ordinance has a 30-day appeal period, I believe, as well. So I would just say, the time frame, let's just say we're ready to go to council, and there's we'd have to schedule the council meeting and then a public hearing at least 2 weeks later, and then a 30-day waiting is about a 2-month process once the participation agreement's ready to go. There's about a 2-month before it would be finalized. Lauren, did you have another question?
No, sorry, I forgot to put down my hand.
So Prisket, yes, again. So 2 things. Could you clarify a little bit, because you touched on that a little bit, the difference between a loan and a grant? And forgive my ignorance if it's, basic, because I hear security, clawbacks, and so if you could clarify that a little bit. And then I have another follow-up question.
Sure. So a grant just means you don't have to pay us back. But the participation agreement, it'll have a duration of time, and it'll have some sort of indication of jobs or expected GRT or something for a period of time that is the public benefit of us giving the grant, but you don't have to pay it back. The loan, it would be paid back. It'd be like, I want to go to the bank to go purchase kitchen equipment, I can get a loan, but it would be better to go to the county and get a 0 interest loan under LEDA than have to pay a bunch of interest. And you can, if you're able to pay it back over time, versus having to, pay all that interest, it's a benefit to getting a loan.
So you would be as stringent for the securities, whether it's a grant or a loan?
Correct, but I would say with the security, what the law says is it has to be equal to the level of public participation. So if it's not security on if a business has like 20% of the funding and they only need 80% to get that done, it's only on the portion of the participation. And then we do have the ability, like if it's a 4-year agreement, we can reduce it, like every year you're open, we can maybe reduce it 25%, that security. So it doesn't necessarily have to be 100%. It doesn't have to be security for the entire piece of it. I know this is in the weeds, but where that becomes a little difficult is when your security is a lien on the property. It is difficult to redo that lien paperwork to reduce the amount over the 4 years. So usually that lien on the property just gets taken off at the end of 4 years. But if it's a letter of credit, you could reduce that amount. If it's cash, we could release some of the cash over the participation. So we're not holding it the entire time.
So if that could be clarified in the application process, whether you're doing a grant or a loan, that also would be helpful. And just a note was, so we know that brick and mortar improvements can be kind of daunting. And architects usually, they won't touch a project if it's too small. Is there a way the county would have some sort of retainer with architects or a list of architects that you've worked with that would actually take on smaller projects?
So that is a topic that we've had a conversation with the LACDC about. We understand that's a barrier, and we'd like to come up with some sort of solution for that. So I appreciate the comment, and we acknowledge it.
So again, a comment and a question, but the comment is that, again, I don't see anything different from this retail LEDA to LEDA of what is available right now. And the question is, you just said that in the ordinance says that the security has to be equal. Can you show me where it says that in the ordinance? I have it in here, so if you can show me that, I will appreciate it.
So the ordinance largely mirrors the state law, but you also have to look at the state law, and I'm happy to send you that that state law citation. I think we've done it before, but happy to do it again.
Challenges for as well.
Yeah, it's Chris Lucchini again. So I have to, you're going to give me a grant, but I have to put up security equal to the grant. That doesn't sound like, that's just odd, right? I guess I could do the lien on the property since I own it free and clear, and it would be annoying if I decide to sell. If I decide to sell the property, the improvements stay. Can that obligation be transferred to the new buyer?
So if there's a change, if the new buyer wants to assume it, we could talk about an amendment or assuming of that participation agreement. What usually happens when there's a sale is that as part of the sale, it gets paid off.
So it goes away.
Yeah.
So there's basically, if I get a grant, I have to, whatever, say 3-4 years, whatever you guys do, keep it for that length of time or forfeit the money. That sounds really interesting.
Well, you don't necessarily have to pay back the entire amount. You just have to pay back the portion of the like if you were 2 years into a 4-year agreement, it would only probably be 50% of.
Okay, but the public benefit of a handicap parking space does not disappear if I sell the building.
Correct, but the participation agreement would have been tied to some sort of business being open or some sort of jobs or some sort of economic benefit that in the sale is likely not continuing. So, but I do think I do think the lien on the property is the easiest way, and that would be a very legitimate way of doing it. And those are the ones that they have not been problematic LEDAs for us. They've been very easy LEDAs for us. And when there's a transfer, we've been able to satisfy any of that very amicably. So I will say the clawback, I think this is important to say, given your first part of your question, the clawback is there to prevent fraud and use of public monies. So when LEDA first started, the clawback in the state it wasn't there. And there were businesses who would take a LEDA loan, a grant, they'd take the money and they close the next day. And so it really is there to protect grabbing the money, and it's provided for a purpose. And so the participation agreement is just to, it's an agreement that we're agreeing to provide this service and do this benefit from a economic development, not necessarily public in terms of like it's a public park. I mean public in that you're providing gross receipts tax and jobs for the community.
Cindy Wells, I had two questions. First, this maybe you defined it earlier. I'm sorry, I was still at work. So small, is $1 million a year in gross receipts small? 2 million? What's small?
We're not going to have a cap. We just mean local. We're just trying to target local business, and we call it small, but we didn't define it purposely because we're not going to, for instance, if you wanted to apply, we wouldn't judge your sales and say you qualify or not. We're just really looking to help local businesses in these areas.
Okay, and then I just sort of have a comment regarding the amounts, which I'm glad Janice, I think, also brought this up, or Lauren, sorry, not sure who did. But the way this is set up, it costs a lot to build out space in this town. So I have plans ready to go, and it's $562K. And that is a very clean space. It is already demoed, it's clean, it needs electrical and plumbing dropped, but it's costly to build out a retail store in this town. So I'm not sure exactly what can be done about that, but it's hard to make that money back at any point.
So what I would say is that type of project we could consider. It doesn't quite fit this model because it's a larger project, but I think it could be considered under LEDA. Okay, I'll go back online. Janice?
Yeah, hi. So just to be clear, my understanding of what I heard was that the review process that happens internally, only projects, applications that are approved are then brought to council. Is that correct?
That's correct. And I think the term approved is something we want to really clarify when we come back on the 5th, because it's really what we're trying to do is lay out very clearly what we're trying to do and meet the criteria to get people through the process. We're not necessarily trying to pick and choose one project against the next. We're trying to get people in these areas that we've specified and identified there's a need through the process.
Okay. So I'm just wondering, in the ordinance, I don't have it in front of me, I'm in my car, but my recollection was something along the lines of that county manager's office brings a recommendation to council. So that could be like, we recommend this project or we don't recommend this project, but council still hears it. Can you point out in the ordinance where it says that part and the clarity there of how that piece works?
So the ordinance spells out my responsibility as a county manager to meet the criteria and of the ordinance, and then make a recommendation to award to council. So it's just being handed to me now. It's section 7 of the ordinance, and it says it used to be the county administrator's office. But the county administrator's office shall review each application, verify information furnished by the applicant, and evaluate the feasibility of the project, the financial and management capabilities and stability of the applicant, and the demonstrated commitment of the applicant to the community. The county administrator's office shall also determine whether the project is permitted and the applicant qualifies for economic assistance under this ordinance, and whether the project will provide a public benefit to the residents of the county by contributing to the achievement by the county of self-sufficiency through economic diversification and increased job and income opportunities. So that is my charge. And I am, through this process, I am just have an internal team where I want support of my finance department as well as my economic development team to weigh into that. And then the additional thing that you need to know about the county is that any contract, which the participation agreement is, has to be approved by the county attorney's office by the form of it for legality. So that's why they're involved as well. And the county attorney's office does not report to the county manager. Did you have a second question, Janice, or did we get it?
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just going to continue reading from the part that you stop, where it says that each applicant should contain a cost-benefit analysis in a format acceptable to the county administrator office. The proposed project should be consistent with the provisions of this ordinance and the objectives and priorities of the Los Alamos County Economic Development Strategic Plan, the council's strategic goals, and the objectives of the county's master plan, downtown Los Alamos as applicable. And then C, upon completion of review process, the county administrator should make a recommendation to the county council whether the proposed project should be approved. Each economic development project should be approved by ordinance. So I think it says in there that you should provide the recommendation to the county council for be approved. And that recommendation can be that is not recommended, but I think in the ordinance gives that opportunity for the applicant to bring their project even with a recommendation of approval or no recommendation to the county council to ultimately make the last decision. And I say that because, again, the process doesn't include that. And I say that because we applied for LEDA and we didn't have the opportunity to present our case and follow the ordinance as it is written. We were never allowed to have the opportunity to present the county council to consider the cost benefit analysis that we were submitting in our application after, we were fulfilling all the satisfaction of county administration.
Do we have any other questions, Jill?
Jill Lang, I'm curious if the length of participation agreement is proportional to the amount of the grant. So for example, if a grant was $100,000, would it go for 5 years? If a grant was $20,000, would it go for 1 year? That type of thing. Thank you.
I got to commend you on an excellent question. And the answer is there is proportionality, but there are also in other variables. It's the amount of the public participation, and it's also what the economic benefit, and then it's time. So there are a few different variables that we would look at, kind of now I will tell you that we try to be as generous as we can, but yes, there's a reasonable, I would call it a reasonable proportionality that needs to be justified and outlined in the participation agreement.
Any other questions? Any other questions online? Happy to take them. Okay. Well, that concludes this evening's Q&A. I'd like to just say thanks to everyone who was able to participate both in person and online. This generated a lot of really good questions, a lot for us to continue to work through as we prepare for the presentation to County Council on August 5th. I encourage anyone who has additional questions to send them to us. Shanna, if you could put that email address on the screen. And we will try to answer those ahead of the meeting on the 5th. If we don't, depending on when we get them, we may not be able to respond to all the questions, but they will be addressed in the presentation that evening. So with that, thanks again, and everyone have a wonderful evening.